Okay, we're cool. So, hey everybody, Chinese here, also known as China L. Colston, actress and indie filmmaker. Today is January 1st, 2021, and I'm here with my friend out of Chicago, Stephen F. McClain. He's also a screenwriter. He's a super dope person and a dope father. Um, and we're going to do our film reaction to the wonderfully creative, bizarre film Talk to Her by Pedro Almodovar out of Madrid, Spain. It was released in 2003, but it is still very relevant and it's still a powerful classic film, in my opinion. So Steve and I watched it, and we're going to give you all our film reaction to this interesting painting, cinematic painting, as I like to refer to films now. So Steve, introduce yourself, and we can get going.
Hey, I'm Stephen F. McClain. Like China said, screenwriter, actor, musician, teacher, conductor, all the good stuff. That's about it.
Yes, yes. Um, and talk to her. So I'm going to go ahead and I have my IMDb here.
Okay.
So I'm going to read what it states about the film, and then we can get started. Talk to Her. I'm sorry, it was released in 2002. It says two men share an odd friendship while they care for two women who are both in deep comas. And let me just say that it's starring Rosario Flores as Lydia Gonzalez, Javier Camara as Benigno Martin, Dario Grandinetti as Marco Zaluga, I know I'm jacking that up, and Leonora Watling as Alicia. Those are the principal characters in the film. Again, written and directed by Pedro Almodovar. So, Steve, go ahead and chime in, brother. Woo!
All right. So I originally saw this film way back in the day, like around when it first came out, but I hadn't seen it in years. So it was like watching a whole new film all over again. Some of these you kind of feel like, what is happening? This is it, and you're watching it, and okay. Oh, I do remember seeing this. So immediately I was taken by the dialogue,
Okay.
you know, the interaction. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Oh,
It's
because you are okay.
it's
Because this
freezing in
this
and
sound is
out.
a
We're
little
sorry about that. Yeah.
okay. So I was immediately taken in by the dialogue between the characters. It seems to be really rich and really conversational. You
Hmm.
don't see a lot of in a lot of films, and that's one of the reasons why I really like independent films and foreign films is because it's more character driven and more dialogue driven as opposed to naked bodies and explosions. Um, as far as the story, I think it was handled really well on a subject matter that is really jacked up,
Yes.
really jacked up. I mean,
Yes.
and if you're paying attention, you can see it coming. But if you're like me and you're like, have I seen this before? And you're not really paying attention to all the signs that he's given, then it kind of smacks you out of nowhere, and you're like, oh wow, okay. Now I'm fully invested. And so when you're first watching it, you're like, oh, it's a love story. This dude's kind of obsessed or whatever.
Right.
He's obsessed with this girl, and the other guy is obsessed with his woman, and oh, so relationships don't always work out. People love who they love or whatever.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, the guess what? It's here, and it's mind-boggling, but it's so beautifully done. It could if any other director would have taken on this subject matter, it would have been farcical,
Yeah. Yeah.
darker, and a lot, and you would not have felt for Benigno in his situation. You would have been like, "Oh, this pervert, he needs to die anyway. Forget him." But Almodovar really handles the darker character gentle and like
Yeah.
it was jacked up, but he's still a human being,
Yeah.
and completely three dimensional. I really loved it.
Okay. So let me start out with that ridiculously beautiful music score that just
Man.
drew me in straight away. That music score was really ridiculous. I need, because it's so, I have to shout out the person who did the music score because it just got me every time. His name is Alberto Iglesias. That music,
Right.
that music score, it was so striking and just tugged at my heart and wouldn't let go of my heart. It was so beautiful and it really served the story.
Right.
Also, I love the color palettes. I'm big on, I know, and Pedro Almodovar he influenced my films. At least started with Dark Sea with the vibrant colors that he used. It started out the very opening. I love the very opening scene that he used a um, theatrical. The one of the principal characters was both of the principal male characters was at a dance theater performance,
Right.
and the dance theater performance reflected or mirrored the two women they were in love with or connected with. Um, and then we
Right.
and then they, oh man, you see that, Steven? I saw it. Dang. Um, I will still keep it going and edit it accordingly.
Okay.
Yep, I'll just edit it, come back. So I was talking about how I know, right? I was talking about how I love that how Pedro Almodovar opened it up with a theatrical dance scene that mirrored the women that they would be involved with, connected to, right? Pina Bosch, I think, was the choreographer and one of the dancers in the opening theatrical dance performance. That the two main characters happen to be sitting next to each other, experiencing this theatrical dance performance. Boom. Then we go right to Benigno, who was a male nurse tending to caring for a dancer, a modern dancer who found herself in a coma, and he was assigned to her along with his female nurse. And he was very caring, and he would talk to her, hence the title. He would talk to this beautiful dancer, and I think she was in her early 20s. He lived across the street from her dance studio, and he would watch her every day for hours because he was obsessed with her. And she ended up getting hit by a car and got in a coma. And her father, who was a psychiatrist, wanted her to have 24-hour attention, and he happened to be a recommended nurse, and you can see why. He was very attentive, and he was Benigno was an interesting, peculiar character. Like, he was very close with his mother. He appeared to have no friends.
Right.
So he appeared to be very lonely. So the only connection he really had was with his coworkers and with this beautiful dancer who was in a coma that he was tending to as a nurse. And he developed this monologue relationship with her because she couldn't communicate with him. But his thinking was women should be spoken to. They need to be talked to them, be attentive to them, listen to them, and consider them. And I thought that was, I mean, bravo to the writing, because I'm like, yes. I mean, all human beings really want that when you finish. But I like that Pedro used this film to communicate that message. And he used this male nurse to do that. I love in the Pedro used beautiful soft sky blue and orange in the hospital scene. I don't know if you checked that out, but I just the orange and the soft blue color palette in her hospital room caught my eye straight away. But I almost felt like she would talk back to him if she could, because it was really like she would talk to him and she was listening. And what are your thoughts about this? Because I'm like, I mean, she did end up coming back to life. So, I mean, I also appreciate how I've never seen how a person in a coma is taken care of. But it was nice to see how nurses take care of people in a coma. I thought that was interesting. And she had a, go ahead, Steve, if you wanted to.
I was now thinking back on it, the title Talk to Her. Benigno's philosophy was you have to talk to, you have to nurture her, because she's still a person, she's still alive in there. And who knows, maybe one day she will come out. And then Zulawaga, he had a completely different philosophy. Like, well, she's dead on the inside anyway. And it was interesting to see how the two philosophies played out. Whereas Zulawaga's woman, I can't think of her name right now, how she ended up dying. The bullfighter ended up dying.
All right, I will be doing a lot of editing. It's so weird. I did this last night. No problems. No problems.
Of course.
Anyway, so you were saying about, and her name is Lydia, the bullfighter's name, female bullfighter. Lydia. Yeah, Lydia and Marco. Go ahead.
Right. I thought interesting that the way the philosophies played out, how basically Zulawaga, Marco, he kind of admired her or watched her from a distance, keeping his space from her, but not really nurturing her or talk to her or whatever. Yeah. Whereas Benigno, he was just all about Alicia every day, all day, as much as he possibly could, just talk to her and everything. And then at the end, how Lydia died, whereas Alicia came out of her coma.
Right.
Right. I just thought that was it was interesting. And that's a phenomenal way to look at it. As people in comas where they into the loved one is still in there. Whereas Marco was just like, but then again, it also could have been the fact that Lydia was about to be like, peace, bruh. Back with her ex.
Right, but he didn't know that, remember?
Well, I mean, he did. He sort of figured it out, especially when he walked and he saw old boy holding her hand and everything. Oh, I love you so much. And he was like, oh, so it was you she was crying for that day. And it really wasn't me.
Yes.
Fix it in post.
Listen. Fix it in post, Steve. I appreciate that. Your attitude about that. This is crazy. I mean, this is the first time I've had problems. Like, this is one of my favorite films I'm actually doing a film collab with, and this is the time that this bad boy is not working, and then this is dark. Yeah. Right. That's a good point. You shoot. All right. That's a good point, Steve, you made about Benicio chose to talk to Alicia, the lady he loved who happened to be in a coma. Whereas Marco did not talk to Lydia, who he had started developing. He wasn't in love with her and obsessed like Benicio with Alicia, but he was connected to her. They would be developing a relationship. And I'm thinking part of that is because he was still mourning his ex, or he was still dealing with his, right? He was slowly healing from her, because that took him 10 years to heal from their departure. So that may have had something to do with him, the blockage from him really. And then, but Benigno's a different type of cat. So most people aren't thinking about talking to people in the coma. And that, to me, that was something that was special about him, like in a good way.
Right.
That he was in tune and he understood the value of still communicating with someone who is in a coma, but they're still they're still alive, even though they are in a coma, right?
Right.
And I thought that was a beautiful part of his personality. And I love also that he did things that she would ordinarily do, like go to the cinema and see silent movies.
Right.
And he always loved dance, because in going to see dance theater, he clearly had I don't know if he just had a love for dance theater prior to seeing her in the dance academy across from him. I don't know if he just always had that appreciation, because the movie starts out with him at the dance theater, but that may have been, this was after she was in a coma. So
right.
He was doing everything that she could not do. And I thought that was wonderful. I thought that was wonderful. And he did meet her. He did meet her. They did talk, and she thought he was weird, but then when he gave her the wallet that she mistakenly dropped, she was at ease. But then the dude went to her house. I mean, he was obsessed. I understand him being enthralled with her because she was beautiful and she seemed to be very kind. And when he met her, so I understand him being attracted to her and wanting to get to know her. But I think they would have developed at least a good friendship. But then she got hit by a car. So, and then let's talk about the a relationship between how Marco ended up meeting Lydia, the woman bullfighter. And I love the idea of the woman being a bullfighter. That's really interesting. I've never seen that.
Right.
And
because
why
it's a male-dominated profession.
Yeah.
And they even touched on that.
They did. She was inspired by her father, who wanted to be a bullfighter, but who never, got to that point in his life. Right. He was a bandelerio. What is that? Is that the people who open the door for them, for the bullfighter?
I think so. I don't know.
Okay, so they had close proximity to being a bullfighter, but she actually achieved the goal and was like an award-winning bullfighter, right? But it seemed like the people in the press were only interested in her relationship with her boyfriend, who was also a bullfighter, as opposed to we're intrigued about you becoming a bullfighter and what led to that, and how do you, what's your preparation? Like, people didn't ask her about her expertise; they asked her about her relationship, and that annoyed her, and that's how she ended up meeting Marco, right?
Right, and I think that speaks to a lot. It speaks a lot to the way women are perceived in their professions. It even in acting in film, they mostly on, instead of what the woman does in her profession, they concentrate on who she's dating or whatever, or what she's wearing, as opposed to what she's doing.
Yes.
And I find that ridiculous, because it's like the women have no whatsoever except for the fact that they are attached to some other dude.
Right.
And that's just ridiculous to me.
Yeah. You could tell that she was frustrated, because she was excited that, this reporter, this journalist was interested in her story. And then he's like, I don't even know anything about bullfighting. She's like, so what it's like, oh, because I want to know about you and your relationship, and you seem like a desperate woman. And she's like, well, what gave you that impression? He said, you. It's like, okay, right to the chase, right, cutting right to it. But I like how it unfolded, because even Benigno was telling Marco, you need to talk to Lydia, although she's in a coma. I know it feels uncomfortable and weird to you, but that's what you need to do. And I think like you were saying, Steve, because I think he was saying that contributes to their healing. That's what I was getting this time around. I didn't get that the first times I seen it, but what you were saying, I think it does. It's just twofold, because it's like I think it can contribute to one's healing, but at the same time, there's the other side that said, like Zoe Near-Hosen said in The Eyes of Watching God, you ain't gonna leave this earth basically until it's your time to go anyway. So maybe Lydia did her service on this earth, and it was time for her to transition. Whereas with Alicia, who had been in a coma longer than Lydia, it wasn't time for her to transition from this sphere. She still had more living to do. And it's beautiful how, let's talk about how the gradual decline of Benigno's character per the viewer. Okay, so Benigno, like I said, he would do things that Alicia would normally do if she were not in a coma. For example, go see dance theater and go see silent film. So he went to see a black and white silent film. And that was a crazy silent film. Steve, you want to talk about it, or you want me to?
You can go ahead and talk about that.
Okay, so
but I do understand why it resonated with him.
Yes. So the silent film he went to go see, was about this woman scientist and her man, and she was trying to create this nutrition experiment or antidote for healthier living, I guess. And she was still experimenting, and her boyfriend or husband like, let me try it, and she's like, it's not really ready, and this is all silent film. It's not ready yet, and he's like, no, and he took it, and he was just a strapping man or whatever, handsome and built and all that, and he took it, and he ended up shrinking. He became this little. He became so little, y'all. She could literally put him in her hand. And he ended up leaving the house because he's like, I don't want you, because she was suffering and sad because her husband turned this miniature person, and he left, and then or she left, and then they reunited because she couldn't live without him, because there was and I like that it proved that there was just, I don't care how small you are, how big, there's a connection here, and even me being able to put you in my hand, that won't hinder me from wanting to be with you, because we have a bond that is stronger than your height, your size, whatever. Hilarious. So she's sitting there talking to him like he's literally in her bed this small, and she's talking to him, and they're just chit-chatting.
Right.
And ultimately she goes to sleep, and he pulled the sheet from over her, cover from over her, and then he sees she's there. Of course, her body happens to be naked. And he looks down and sees her breast and her other gift, and he walks down, and we literally see, we're all grown, her vagina,
right?
And it's in black and white, and it's her vagina, and I was like, wow, to see the woman's vagina that big on the screen like that, it was funny. Right. And he literally walked, because he was small enough, it's small as a vagina. So he literally walked into her. He put his hand in her vagina, it came out, and then he literally took off his clothes and walked inside her vagina. Leave it to Pedro Moldovar to come up with something like this. And that movie, and so Bonino is watching this movie, and so she ended up having an orgasm. Next thing you know, we see Benigno in caring for Alicia, and him and the woman nurse would wash her body and moisturize her and comb her hair, and if she's on her cycle, they would put on a pad and everything that she could do, they would do and talk to her. And after he saw that movie, you want to take it on? Go ahead, Steve, pick it up from what happened once he came back from the movie.
Well, after he saw the movie, he was like, why not? I've been influenced by this movie. Why not? We're going to take our love to the next level. She loves me in his mind. She loves me. I love her. Why not? She didn't say no.
She didn't say no.
So let's go ahead and let's do this. And that leads to a lot of problems.
Benigno entered her, had sex with her, raped her. And he's not thinking, one, he should be like, okay, I understand I want to make love to her once she becomes alive and we connect more and she wants to make love with me. I understand that. But to take it upon yourself to have sex with somebody in a coma, it's rape. I don't care how much we like him. We've grown to like him and respect him. And that's what the screenwriter did. He made us like him, respect him, right?
Right.
Have compassion for him. And then he does this. And that's what you're supposed to do to your character. I've never done that extreme to a principal character, but that's what he did. But he, made us like him. And he raped her. And what he did not take into account, or what he forgot, was we get our periods, which indicate that we are not pregnant.
Right.
So Benigno,
he tried to hide it.
He tried to hide it.
Yeah, when she missed her first period, he tried to hide it. Well, everything's fine.
Yeah, and some people in coma, they don't get their period, they miss it because
Right. And I knew what was happening. I knew what was up as soon as he said, because backtrack.
Yeah.
So there was a scene where Marco goes in. It's right after he finds out that Lydia was supposed to get back with her ex-boyfriend, and he sees Alicia laying on her side, facing the window. So he goes and talks to her or whatever. He's like, you know what, I'm about to leave because, you know, whatever, everything's done. And so Benigno comes in. He's like, oh, I see you looking at her breast because she's naked, right?
Right.
He's like, oh, I bet you were looking at her breast, and it's perfectly fine. You know, they are getting larger, aren't they? And I was like, oh my God, she's pregnant. That's when I put it together. That's when I realized that this dude has done the unspeakable.
And you go ahead,
And,
please.
and nobody else picked it up. All the
I
nurses.
didn't pick it up.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't?
I did not, and I'm a woman.
Oh, right. Well, I guess since I'm a father, you know,
Right.
and I was there when my ex-wife went through all that, you know, and I recognized the signs, and the nurses were like, "Oh yeah, she's a little swollen here." I was like, "Oh, why does nobody see this?" It's because they didn't want to see it. They didn't want to believe that something like that could happen in their institution. But I was like, this guy has done it,
and he had no history of perverse behavior. Nothing but love toward his patients. So it was like, of course they're not going to, you know, it's just like, well, you know, this body's peculiar, so, you know, things happen, and, you know, because I wouldn't have thought straight away, oh, he raped. I wouldn't have, like, if I had been working with Benigno, I wouldn't, I would just be like, oh, this is weird, okay, but she's in a coma and things, the body is, but
I can't say the same thing, because he told her father that he was gay.
He did.
And then when the other nurse was talking about it, she was like, oh, you're gay? He was like, no, I lied to him. I was like, there's clue number one that he's not really trustworthy. You got to watch this guy. Oh, yeah, no, I'm not gay. But he told her father that so he could continue working with her, and nobody would have a problem. No one would have a problem with him working by himself overnight with Alicia, because they all thought he was gay, but he really was not.
And he you know, he was very, and I think this was intentional too. He was very, he had like subtle, effeminate ways for me as a woman.
Yes.
So I was like, initially when I first was introduced to him as a character, I'm like, oh, he's gay. Like, you know, just subtle, like, subtle things that to me suggested that he may be, you know, gay. At least effeminate, right?
Right.
And so when he said that,
right, I thought so too.
Yeah. So I'm like, if I were her father, I would believe him too. Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, there are dudes who are heterosexual who are effeminate, but I'm like, yeah, it's not a far stretch. But, and maybe he was acting like that again to really sell it. Or maybe he just was an effeminate heterosexual dude, whatever. We know that he was attracted to Alicia. We do know that.
Right.
Whatever the case. And I think he was a virgin. I think that was not a lie.
Yeah, definitely.
I think he was definitely a virgin. And he was isolated
because he was taking care of it. Right.
He only had a relationship with his mother. I think he only ever had a relationship with anybody. So, but the two of the women nurses, like, she loves him or she likes him. She's like, and one nurse was like, oh, good choice, honey. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting that when he did finally rape her, I mean, it's no way we can't skate around it. That's what he did. And it sounds terrible, but I was supposed to hate him when I discovered that. I should have hated him, his guts. But I had already
But you had gotten to know him. Yeah, you had already gotten to know him and you loved him. You had an affinity for him. So he became like one of your family members who does something really jacked up, and you're like, that was messed up, but you're still family.
Yeah, Pedro really put us in a bind as viewers. He really did, because I'm like, dude. I mean, I know they said, make the audience like the protagonist and then make them do something crazy where you don't like them and then you like them again. But I'm like, I mean, he raped somebody who was in a coma. You can't even dance around that. Anyway, Um, but prior to that, we forgot to express how Lydia died. The Marco's love interest. So Lydia, the bullfighter, she was very distracted by her ex-boyfriend who was a bullfighter because they are broken up, and people were suggesting that he only used his connection to her to be more visible as a bullfighter. And that hurt her heart to feel like you weren't loved for your essence. You were loved because you could heighten someone's career, right? But turns out he did in fact love her, but he was a little wuss for a moment, and then he came back to his senses, but unfortunately he came back too late. But she was basically in another, she had another bullfight ring, and clearly the bull came out, and it was a lovely scene that led up to it, because Pedro really let us in as the audience to see how this works. Like, the bull is in the box, and someone has a prod with a pointy end, and that's terrible. But anyway, and they stick him in his back, and then they open the door, and so he comes out charging towards the bullfighter, and she had her red cape, and I guess she's supposed to push it in the direction where he'll go in the direction of the red cape, but she did it in a way where she pushed it up, and so he went into her body, and he punctured her body and dragged her all over. And then another bullfighter came out and distracted him. And that's how she got in a coma. But she was an award-winning bullfighter, and a beautiful woman, right? Because they had gone to a very feminine woman outside of the bullfighter ring. And so that's how she got in a coma, which is really tragic, because I came to like her too. Oh, Steve, let's talk about the irony of her being this courageous bullfighter, but then she had this phobia. Go ahead and share the phobia that she had with the audience. Bravo to Pedro.
I love that juxtaposition. She fights these 2, 3, 5,000 pound bulls and just like, get as close as you can. Right. I'm not worried about it. And there's a snake, and she's like, she runs out of the house like, fear of these little snakes. And she fights these big giant bulls that can destroy her at any time.
I mean, they literally next to her, and she was like fearless. Right. And she would literally ran out of her house, wouldn't even go back in the house because of a little snake. And you fighting these bulls? The bull was literally right here.
Right. She said, I'm never going there. Right. I'm never going back in that house again. He's like, I can go get you some clothes. She's like, nope. No. You're going to keep it.
No.
Burn it.
Right.
She's like, I'm done. I'm never going back there again.
Can we take a moment of silence for Pedro as a screenwriter, please?
Man.
I mean, Steve, come on. He won an Oscar, by the way, for this, and he should have. He should have won every award possible for screenwriting.
Right. I mean, as I was watching this, I was thinking, I don't know if I could amend this or not. And then when Benigno started getting a little creepy, I was like, this is taking a creepy turn. Still don't know if I would recommend this or not. And then then when you realized that he had raped her, I was like, nope, can't recommend this. But as it went on, I was like, damn, maybe I judged this too soon.
Yeah.
This is this is phenomenal.
It's phenomenal.
Right. The writing, the acting, the directing, the cinematography. I was like, I'm going to have to recommend this.
No.
But you got to watch out for the story. It's a little jacked up, but it's beautifully handled.
I mean, the writing and the complexity of the characters. I mean,
even the characters are still kind of complex. Like her dance teacher.
Yes. Adorable, and how she treated her like she was her own daughter, and she was talking to her as well, like she could respond and attentive to her. Because clearly Alicia's mother must have passed away, and she kind of was like a surrogate mother.
Probably.
Her dance teacher.
Right.
I mean, the relationships were wonderful. And ultimately, like as we said, Lydia, the bullfighter, ended up dying, which was really sad. And then um, Alicia, the dancer, did survive. And when Benigno was imprisoned, and they don't call their prisoners inmates, they call them interns, and that's a really fancy way of saying a prisoner, but they call them interns. He was in a new jail facility, a prison facility, and we discovered that in that moment he wanted to talk to Marco, and Marco came to visit him, and that's when he disclosed that Marco was his only friend, and that he was very lonely. And I think that's exactly why he, outside of him being drawn to Alicia prior to her being in a coma, I think a part of the reason he talked to her is because he was lonely and he had no friends.
Right.
Again, which make you have sympathy for him. And I like the friendship that he and Marco developed over time.
Right.
But Marco was definitely the voice of reason. Like, dude, that's fucked up what you did.
Right. When Benigno was like, "Yeah, we're gonna get married," he's like, "Dude, what are you talking about?"
There's no part of her body can. He's like, what are you talking about? It's not. No, it is. She can't talk, dude. She's not awake.
Right.
You can't marry her.
Right.
He was gone. It was a wrap for him. Like he was sane in many ways, but then in that way, he just like he was disconnected from reality.
Right.
Although his talking to her, I think, I don't know. Yeah, this is not something you could just wrap up in a neat bow, this story.
Right. Not at all.
And then ultimately, Benigno killed himself with a number of pills, and it really hurt Marco because I like that Pedro did not have him like skate over, like, you know, Pedro made sure that Marco chastised him for doing such a ridiculous, awful thing, raping her. It's like, I know, it was like that's fucked up, dude. Like I can't even like skate around it. This is what it is. But he ended up killing himself because he's like, if I can't be with Alicia, and Alicia was pregnant, she had a stillborn baby. And he was like, if he can't be with her, have any part of her, then what's the point of living? And then the poetic part of it was before he died, or right, I guess, as they're preparing for the funeral, Marco she had a hair clip that he stole from her house while she was alive, taking a shower. And Marco placed that hair clip into, I guess, his little funeral suit and something else of Alicia. So he's like, that you two at least can be together eternally, I guess, whenever Alicia passes away, blah, blah, blah. It's tragic and effed up what he did, but it was still sad. And I feel kind of weird for saying that, but I know I'm supposed to hate him. I hate what he did to her. I really hate what he did to her, but I don't hate him in totality.
Right.
But it was nice how, again, Marco, because go ahead.
No.
Oh, it was nice how, again, Marco and Benigno met one another at a dance theater performance, sitting next to each other, coincidentally, and Pedro, the filmmaker, wrapped it up with once Benigno passed away and Lydia passed away, Marco went to see another dance performance, and just so happens during intermission, he meets Alicia. He discovers that she's alive. Well, he discovered that she was alive when he moved into Benigno's apartment. Right before he passed away, and he saw her dead. He was watching the dancers from across the street and noticed Alicia was alive, and it took him by surprise, and he noticed that Benigno had a shrine of photos of Alicia anyhow, that's when, and then after that, he went to the dance. He went to see a dance theater performance and discovered her during intermission. And she's like, "Are you okay?" Because he was emotional. He was an emotional cat because, again, of his prior relationship. Um, he was moved, I guess, by the performances or thought about Benigno. And she's like, "Are you okay?" And she had a crutch or whatever, and not a crutch, but a stick, a cane. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." And they went back into the dance theater area to finish watching the show, and they happened to look at and go ahead and talk about Marco and the dance theater teacher. Marco. The interaction.
Yeah, at the end when
during intermission, yeah.
Right. The dance teacher, she knew Marco, and she knew the relationship he had with Benigno. So when she saw that Marco and Alicia was talking at the end, she was like, whoa, player. What's happening here? What were you just talking about? It? Marco's like, look, nothing's going on. I ain't to her. She doesn't know who I am. But, we can talk about this later, and I think we should talk about it. And the teacher was like, yeah, I think we need about it. I'm going to tell you this whole story and blah, 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 blah. And Marco was like, it's not going to be as difficult as you think it is because Benigno's dead and I live in okay. And so she started softening up towards Marco. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, because Marco was not the perpetrator. So I'm sure she was more at ease about that. Right. And then they go, and so they both go back to their seat. And the dancer just sits next to Alicia, the dancer who was in a coma, and then he sits like 2 seats ahead of them. And in a few moments, they both look at each other simultaneously, and there is an attraction, clearly a connection. And then, instantly. And then Pedro cut away to what's happening on the stage, and it's a bunch of dancers, and they have this particular kind of dance, which is so, I'm sure Shaki would appreciate it. This kind of interesting hip dance move with the men and the women to partner up. And I love that choreography. It's very simple, but it really drew me in. And then, so a number of couples dance across the stage, and then it concludes with this man and a woman by themselves walking, and they discover each other, like that of Marco and Alicia. So what is on the stage is reflected in the audience, that connection. And then it concludes. This is my favorite. When I lived in Chicago, I used to go to Hollywood Video every Friday, and I would have a date with myself. I would go and rent an independent film and a foreign film, and I would go get pizza from Pizza Capri, and my night would be just complete. And that's when I discovered Talk to Her. And this was like 2005 when I discovered this particular DVD, and I was enthralled. And I was like, and he instantly became my favorite foreign filmmaker because I'd seen other foreign films that I really liked. But this one was, I love dancing first. So it first started out dancing. So, but his storytelling to me is so magnificent that I hope to one day be as good of a screenwriter, filmmaker as him, because I think he's incredible. Steve, you want to say how his screenwriting and filmmaking impacted you with this story?
This story, I think his writing style made me realize the depths you need to go or to delve into when creating characters.
Yeah.
You have their entire lives in the situation. And as I started reading some of the other things that I've read, like, some of these characters are not really fully developed. And it seems like Bavar, he has developed every single small character, even the background characters.
Yes.
Even the secondary characters. You're constantly talking about, or constantly try to think of everyone being a fully realized three-dimensional human being. But as screenwriters, you spend the majority of your time developing your main characters and maybe your secondary characters, but so much. But it seems like he has taken every one of those characters and made them a main character in another film.
Yes.
Not necessarily in another film, but
yeah,
the main character in their own film within this world, if that makes any sense.
No, it does.
And I think that's what I've tried to do lately, is make these secondary and tertiary characters the main character in a different film within the world of this film, or the film that I'm working on now. I think it's just brilliant on so many levels. And I really can't even get started on filmmaking on what he does. It's just a completely different level.
It's a whole,
But then again, I like.
Yeah, you see y'all, like, and y'all know I talk a lot, but I'm still speechless because it's just brilliant. I don't know. There's no other way to. Every component of his filmmaking, like the foundation, which is the screenplay, so intricate. The color palette of this cinematic painting, the music score that complements every mood of the film, the direction, the pacing. Nothing felt like it was dragging. Nothing felt rushed. It was like the right temperature. It was the right temperature. The relationship developed. The relationship was really fully developed. They were just so accessible and even if I can't relate to Benigno, but I can relate to, like, like people in my auntie. Like, I think my auntie was in a coma because I loved her so much. She passed away when I was 15, but I would have talked to her like him. I would have been like, yeah, auntie, it's school today, da, 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 da. And because it's like when you love somebody so much, I guess you do start delivering a monologue. If they're not conscious, they can't respond to you. But to me, at the core of this film, it was about love. It turned perverted through his actions. Yeah. But initially, overall, I could say it was like these people felt a sense of love. Even like the dance teacher loved Alicia, her dance student, who was like a daughter. Marco loved his ex-girlfriend, and he began to care deeply for Lydia. Lydia began to care for him, but loved her ex-boyfriend. And so it was just a lovely, lovely painting that I'm so glad I experienced. And bravo to Pedro Almodovar. Right. Y'all, please check out this film. It doesn't matter if you are a filmmaker, screenwriter, actor, director, civilian, if you're not an artist, but you love art in the form of film, I don't think you will regret it. Everybody is different, of course, but it's nothing but it's a delight to me. And filmmakers, I will say filmmakers, screenwriters, whatever component of filmmaking you happen to delve into, you need to watch this movie because it's a class. It's a master class, right, Stephen?
You need to study this film.
Study it. It's a master class. Yeah. So I'm going to chime up here and say thank you so much, Steve, for joining me on this film reaction Zoom collaboration for Talk to Her by Pedro Almodovar. And please share with my audience anything, how they can follow you on social media, if you have a YouTube channel, your website, your classes, whatever. Go ahead and put it out there.
Well, you can find me on www.sfmcoaching.com or www.afymusicians.com. I'm pretty much just teaching right now. Teach music and writing.
Okay.
Want to learn some music? Want to learn to play an instrument? Want to sing better? Want to learn to perform? I'm there.
Okay, cool, y'all. So, all right, China L. Coaston, also known as Chinese actress and independent filmmaker. Happy New Year, and enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.
Peace.